Today's podcast is brought to you by Chikara Wrestle Factory, 4711 Wingate Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, specializing in lucha libre, porosu, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling, all built into the curriculum there at the Wrestle Factory, where they strive to create the most well-rounded performers active today. Hey, yo, everybody, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out, click subscribe, and show your support for our program. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 31. This episode, we're going to cover all the newest news, the rumors that are out there, all the results from Raw and Smackdown for the week, and let's just get right started, because this is going to be a jam-packed episode. First off, Raw. Raw is going to start with a Goldberg segment. He comes out to the ring, does his typical entrance thing he's been doing, snotting and snorting up a storm. I don't care. This guy's 50 years old. He looks awesome. I'm just saying. I'm not a huge Goldberg mark, but he looks awesome. He comes into the ring. He's cutting a promo. He stumbles over his words again. Having a tough time saying the word suit, but whatever. Goldberg's not known for his mic work to begin with. He's known for, kicking tail and taking names. So Goldberg out to the ring, cuts a promo talking about how Kevin Owens just talks and talks. At one point, he talks about how he never makes a promise he doesn't keep. This Sunday, 6 days away, Spear, Jackhammer, new Universal Champion. Great promo from Goldberg, better than a lot of the ones that he does. I'm hoping that means that Paul Heyman is still helping cut his promos and design his programs. Enter Kevin Owens, whose music hits. Kevin Owens comes out. He had such a great interaction here because he listed all the people that he's defeated since he came to WWE, including John Cena, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose, all these people. At one point, there's some back and forth. They talk about fighting right away, and he says, all right, let's have a Green Bay street fight, because they're in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Owens charges down to the ring, stops just short. He says that Green Bay doesn't deserve to see him fight, and he ends up, leaving everybody with sour grapes. But at the end of the day, very good back and forth of them. No physicality. I think it's important to keep that for the pay-per-view. I don't want to see either person look weak or too strong ahead of the pay-per-view. So this was perfect way to have the lead-in for this weekend's pay-per-view. Really looking forward to that match now. Next segment of the show has the New Day come out, cut their promo, their typical thing, talking about their ice cream, throwing out boxes of Booty-O's, which if you have not found them anywhere, you can find them right now if you go to FYE. My local mall has them at FYE. You can buy Booty-O's by the dozen there. And believe it or not, they're actually delicious. So, New Day comes out, cutting their promo. They're interrupted by the Shining Stars. There's a whole back and forth there where it's announced that the Shining Stars are going to face the Big Show later in the evening. And instead, the New Day are going to go against Rusev and Jinder Mahal. When Rusev and Mahal come out, actually a relatively entertaining match. I really like the ring work of Jinder Mahal. I think he's such an underappreciated talent. And WWE has a lot of people like that. For all the Dolph Ziggler marks out there and everything, Apollo Crews, Jinder Mahal, I think, is actually a really superbly talented wrestler, and I think he's found a way to connect with the fans in a way that should put him in a better position, but you can just see his history and the lack of push and everything else. It's just not happening right now, which is really a shame. I think they're really missing something with Jinder Mahal. He has a very different look than a lot of their stars. I think he could really be something, but at the end of the day, Rusev's outside the ring defending the honor of his wife, Lana, who's arguing out at ringside with Kofi Kingston, and there's a roll-up for a win. Jinder Mahal gets pinned. There's some back and forth exchange between Mahal and Rusev after the match. I'm sure that'll lead to something at some point. These two clearly can't be a team forever since they're not getting any kind of significant push. And Rusev used to be the unstoppable beast, and then after losing the U.S. title to John Cena a couple years ago, he's kind of been stuck in mid-card la-la land for forever, but we'll have to see what they do with him. Next segment, Enzo and Cass in the back. Enzo's going off about wanting to win the gold and all this and that. Cass tries to focus his energy talking about how they, Gallows and Harrison won gold everywhere around the world, that Enzo and Cass have never won any. Kind of gets him focused again, then he goes right back to his ranting about having to win the championship, which is kind of cool. He's got that hyperactive character, and then Cass with the sound mind and the peace of mind guy. So I actually love these two together. I really hope it's a tough situation. I would love to see them win the tag team championship, but I really wanted Gallows and Anderson to get a good lengthy run with the titles, which they never have. So I'm torn with who I would like to see walk out with those tag team championships. I'd be okay either way. Go to the next segment. They're in the back again. You'll notice with Raw, we are getting more and more backstage segments every week. The wrestling itself takes a backseat. It's really a shame, especially when you've got a talent roster as stacked as Raw has. Samoa Joe interrupts a whole conversation between Cesaro and Sheamus, being all upset about not getting their tag title shot. Cesaro is mad. He's trying to calm Sheamus down, tells him it's going to be okay. Enter Samoa Joe, and for those who don't know, Samoa Joe and Cesaro have met before in Ring of Honor. This is not something new. They have great chemistry in Ring of Honor. I'm sure it would continue here. There's some back and forth conversation. What I think was the most important part of the interview is at one point Joe says to Cesaro that he's mad because he's still searching for the brass ring, but with Joe debuting, he debuted with it around his neck, which I think was great. It really builds some of the anger. It can bring out something great in the Cesaro character. Cesaro says all Joe does is carry Triple H's jockstrap, which has got to be the line from the night. That's awesome. That's the personality Cesaro just doesn't have normally. I love the line. So that's going to lead to a match later in the evening. As you can tell, it's not booked yet, but you know it's going to be. The next segment is another backstage segment. Stephanie McMahon talking to Mick Foley. It's the anniversary of Mick Foley's retirement at the hands of Triple H. She talks about how she wanted to apologize to Mick. He had all these accolades throughout his career, and all these years later, Triple H continues to get better. Foley is like a shell of himself, and in all reality, Foley, he really is, but he's still contributing in a great way. I'm glad they found a way to keep his character relevant for so long as this Raw GM thing. I anticipate that'll be going away very shortly so he can go have his surgery. I'm curious to see what he does after the surgery, but either way, this was clearly a segment for Stephanie to be able to bring down Mick Foley's spirits and see where that leads later. The next action in the ring, Akira Tozawa defeats Noam Dar. He's got Alicia Fox at ringside. Pretty prototypical match. Tozawa looks great. I think he's an insane talent. I'm glad they got him. Kendrick attacks him after the bell. Tells him this is lesson number 3, even though you won your match. You gotta have eyes in the back of your head. I like this. I did not like Kendrick's work when he first came back. I'm really enjoying this potential feud. I don't even want to call it a feud yet because Tozawa really hasn't done anything yet. But it's clear that they're trying to put some substance to this feud, and I really appreciate that. Go to the next segment. Again, a backstage segment. Mick Foley in his second or third one already. Mick Foley's backstage, and he bumps into Samoa Joe. Joe asking him, are you having a nice day? And there's some back and forth banter between Foley and Joe, leading to Mick Foley making the match for later in the night. Samoa Joe is going to face off against Cesaro, which we already saw coming, but I guess you had to have another segment to fill some time in a 3-hour broadcast that should be a 2-hour broadcast, and to officially make the match. Our next part is pseudo segment and match. Charlotte comes out with Dana Brooke. They're talking in the ring, essentially calling out Bayley and Sasha Banks. Bayley and Sasha Banks come out to the ring. They discuss how there's going to have a tag team match, but Dana Brooke is not Charlotte's partner. Hit the music, enter Nia Jax. This is one of those typical, shorter than you'd like to be, but still quality tag team matches for the women's division. 4 of the best women wrestlers in the world right now. Really a great, all 4 of them have such good chemistry. It's believable, it's physical. You really can get absorbed in a match, just like you do with some of the classic matches from some of the male performers of the 80s and 90s. These ladies are really putting on a show for the fans, and I hope people are beginning to really appreciate what the WWE female wrestlers are bringing to the table, because it is really, really exciting stuff. The end of the match sees Nia Jax hit a leg drop on Bayley, pick up the win for Charlotte and Jax. We go into another backstage segment because Foley hasn't done enough in the night. Foley and Braun Strowman in the back discussing how Strowman wants to have a contract signing with Reigns so he doesn't back out of his match at Fastlane. Kind of a ludicrous way to look at things, but whatever. You need to have some way to build some intrigue, I suppose. So Foley's going to have a contract signing at the end of the night for Braun and for Roman Reigns. Luke Gallows is going to come to the ring with Carl Anderson. Cass is going to come out with Enzo. Gallows against Cass. There's a back and forth. This is, I guess, fodder for this coming weekend's match between the two teams, to be perfectly honest with you. Because of the way the tag team division's been booked over the last couple months, I already feel like this feud is stale, but it's brand new, and it's very frustrating. Cass picks up the win after a big boot. That's fine. The match was solid. It was serviceable. It filled time, but there just wasn't very much storytelling here, and it's to the point now where I feel like Raw has got the far superior tag team division as far as quality of teams, but neither show, SmackDown or Raw, has any real emotion behind any of their tag teams, except for the New Day, who are not even in the title picture right now, which is a good thing. Don't get me wrong. They just had their long title reign. They need to stay out of it for a while, but it's just, there's no feeling. There's no emotion. So if we go to the next match, Sheamus had this altercation backstage with Titus O'Neil. It leads to a match between the two. Titus looked great at the beginning of this match. They really did a good job of setting him up to look tough, and then just like a brogue kick for a pin. I mean, Titus O'Neil has been so wasted, it's ridiculous. A guy who gets voted like best dad in the world or whatever he was a couple years ago, you would think they would promote him more. Instead, they've turned him into just a complete jobber. It's really a shame to see what they've done to Titus O'Neil. Next is the most anticipated part of Raw. Seth Rollins coming out and doing his interview segment with Corey Graves. Hit Triple H's music. Samoa Joe comes out. Triple H is warning him about not going to Mania. Before that all happens, you can see Seth Rollins is really not good at selling this emotional character who's talking about how maybe he deserves all this and all that kind of stuff. It's just not his character. I would have been happier if he would have just come out and shot his mouth off, but whatever. I guess we had to create some new layer to his personality. Triple H threatens him, and at the end of the segment, he talks about how he already told Stephanie a couple weeks ago he has nothing left to lose, and so he'll be at Mania if it's the last thing he does, and if he does, then it'll be the last thing Triple H ever does. So I guess there's some intrigue there. We'll have to wait and see if the match actually takes place. He was believable when he limped to the ring that he may actually still be severely hurt, and he's not supposed to be ready to go for a couple weeks anyway, so I suppose this is good just to keep the potential for a match there, but I'm not sure if he's going to make it to the match. I'm still going to be keeping my eyes on that. Big Show's match against the Shining Stars is up next. This is a complete squash, pointless match. If you were trying to bury a tag team, I think Breezango could beat the Shining Stars, and that's saying something. The Ascension could beat the Shining Stars right now. So the Vaudevillains could beat the Shining Stars right now. I think I could beat the Shining Stars right now. I'm just saying. Go to the next match. The first decent match of the entire evening so far. Jack Gallagher, well, except for the women's tag match. Jack Gallagher and TJ Perkins going against Neville and Tony Nese. I love some of their cruiserweight exchanges that they keep putting on. I love some of the moves. Some of the submission holds are ridiculous. This match ends by submission. Nese ends up tapping out when Neville pretty much walks away from him, leaves him in the ring, which has kind of become his MO lately. You go to the next segment is the Beth Phoenix announcement of her Hall of Fame induction. She is the youngest person going into the Hall of Fame at 36 years old, and it'll be the first time we have a couple in the Hall of Fame because she's married to fellow Hall of Famer Adam Edge Copeland. So very cool that she gets to be the youngest and the first couple with Edge. It adds a little more mystique to her Hall of Fame nomination. For those people who are hating on her nomination to the Hall of Fame because Chyna's still not in, get over it. Chyna will be in at some point. You don't put her in right now. She died from a mixture of drugs. Okay, WWE doesn't want that kind of press this soon after her death. They'll make a case for her soon enough. Give it some time. It's too soon. Go to the match with Cesaro versus Joe. This was predictable. They both put on a really physical match. These are two amazing talents. I'm so glad to see them in the ring together. You know Joe's going to win. Joe pulls off his victory, but it was still exciting to watch. It's the only hard part with wrestling right now, especially WWE wrestling, is you can pretty much see who's going to win every match that goes on the card anymore, except for the matches that don't really have no consequence. So that's the only part that I take away that I am frustrated with. You already know Joe's going to win, and Cesaro has no chance. Joe cuts a promo at the end, talking trash on the whole locker room, hits Sami Zayn's music, who attacks him from behind. Very cool way to make Zayn look really strong. They pull him apart. After the show, it's announced that Zayn's going to go against Samoa Joe at Fastlane. We kind of expected that anyways, as reported here on this podcast, as well as other media outlets. There's another segment at the start of the contract signing. So Foley's out there and he's talking to Strowman. They're having some back and forth. Foley's fed up with being talked down to. He gets in Strowman's face. Strowman gives him some attitude about not being intimidated, smacks the mic out of his hand. Enter Roman Reigns, who comes out. He goes to attack Strowman. There's all this melee in the ring, out of the ring, barricades, spears through the stuff. Strowman's knocked down. Reigns gets in the ring to go sign a contract. Strowman gets up. There's a whole back and forth beatdown. Strowman comes out on top, having Reigns pretty much laid out. Strowman's already signed the contract, and you see Reigns, to close the show, crawling over to sign the contract. So the match is on for Fastlane, which we already knew. This was just a way to close out the show to build some excitement in their golden child, Roman Reigns. Just saying. Going to switch gears, go to SmackDown, because we're already 14 minutes into this podcast, and I got a lot to cover. We start the show with Shane McMahon, Daniel Bryan, AJ Styles, talking in the back about the match later tonight between AJ and Harper. Eventually, Harper shows up behind AJ. There's a whole conversation about the hillbilly hick making fun of Harper's appearance and whatnot. Harper looks very gracious, thanking them for the opportunity. They talked. There was a back and forth exchange about last week's results and who won and whatever. But I guess this was necessary just to kick off the show with another segment, because that's what WWE likes to do right now, is have talking in 90% of their show. The very next segment is the same thing, Miz TV with John Cena. I will say this, there's a great sentence or a great paragraph, so to speak, from John Cena. And I'm going to quote this because I think it's awesome. It says, "With him or against him, everybody knows who John Cena is. Who the hell is The Miz? He's a dude named Mike who shortened his name and bootlegged The Rock's charisma to get a job in WWE. Then The Miz decides to steal Chris Jericho's personality, Ric Flair's figure four leg lock, and Daniel Bryan's move. You ask any of the greats and they'll say they're themselves with the volume as high as it can go. That's why they believe. The Miz is nothing more than a trend-hopping, joke-stealing shell of a WWE superstar." Ouch. That was a killer promo on The Miz by John Cena. I don't know if they wrote that for him or if he was speaking from the heart, because I can completely relate to how he feels throughout that whole thing. Maurice, as Cena's getting ready to leave, Maurice cuts him off. Some little back and forth about her and her man or whatever, slaps John Cena in the face. Enter Nikki Bella attacking Maurice, which I love. And the bizarre part is, out of character, so to speak, John Cena and Nikki Bella start making out in the middle of the ring. A little weird. I'm just saying, I don't see John Cena that way. He's more of an athlete. I don't need to see him making out with somebody in a ring, even if it is Nikki Bella. All right, move on to the next thing. Becky Lynch versus Mickie James, 2 out of 3 falls match. I guess this is to try to, finish up their mini feud or whatever. I really would like to see Mickie James start picking up more wins here. She gets 1 fall, but she loses 2-1 to Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch wins the final fall by submission. Kind of predictable. It's a shame because Mickie James signs this 3-year deal to come back, and she's become like a glorified jobber to all the new women of the women's revolution. It's kind of pathetic, if you ask me. I don't know why these other women that WWE's reaching out to want to come back just to be, the fodder for the new wave of girls. You got to start giving them some wins too, and more than one here and there. Promo with Luke Harper talking about his lack of fear of Bray Wyatt. Bray Wyatt cuts a promo right after talking about, his relationship with Randy Orton and this and that. I don't know why these segments are necessary. There's going to be a whole thing with Bray Wyatt at the end of the show. There really wasn't it wasn't necessary to have this tidbit in there too. Moving ahead, Alexa Bliss. I actually enjoyed this segment, even though I normally wouldn't. Alexa Bliss is in the back talking about how historic her second women's championship win is and this and that. Natalya comes in. She's congratulating them on both of their wins. Alexa Bliss talks about how her win is so much more historic, and Natalya ends up telling her that, she's going to take her title. And I like this. I like this heel versus heel for the women's championship thing. I actually really like where this can go. It feels fresh and it feels exciting, and that's tough for me to say when you think about the SmackDown women, because they haven't had anything exciting in a very long time. We're going to go to the main event, which is going to feature, what I consider to be the main event, when you see AJ Styles go against Luke Harper. AJ's going to actually hit the phenomenal forearm for the pin, but Luke Harper's feet are on the ropes. Enter Shane McMahon, who comes out to the ringside. He restarts the match and says it's not going to end that way, but it doesn't really matter because AJ Styles hits a springboard 450 for the win anyways. So AJ Styles, slated to go to WrestleMania as the #1 contender to face Bray Wyatt. More on that later. It's announced that John Cena and Nikki Bella will be in action next week in mixed tag team action against Carmella and James Ellsworth. I cannot tell you how much I actually am looking forward to that. That should be hilarious. They need to get Ellsworth on TV more anyways. Just saying, you took all that time to create this legitimate fan-followed star, and now he's kind of like disappeared into the woodwork because of his program with Ambrose being over. I'd like to see him more. Let's just give the guy, if you're going to have him on contract, give him more exposure. Ambrose segment comes out, hits Dirty Deeds on Kurt Hawkins, cuts a promo on Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin appears on the Titantron. It's obvious these two are headed for a collision. I sometimes these storylines are way too over choreographed. I didn't feel any chemistry there. I felt a little bit of vulnerability from Ambrose, but Corbin I don't know, there's something about his character. He doesn't seem to connect with the fans the way you would want him to after being at it for so long. Move on to Dolph Ziggler versus Apollo Crews in a chairs match. Whatever. Why is this on this card? A chairs match? Really? Whatever. It ends with, Ziggler crotching him on the chair or whatever. That's fine. I guess that's another way to keep Crews' character down and make Ziggler seem like he's relevant, even though he's really not right now. The end of the show sees Bray Wyatt's invocation, where he's ranting and raving about, being the eater of worlds and this and that, and talk about his relationship with Randy Orton. And then they really throw the swerve out there where Randy Orton comes out and he starts cutting his own promo about, Sister Abigail, and then maggots feasting on Sister Abigail, and he's pouring gasoline all over Bray's cabin, and it's a bizarre, really strange, dark promo from Randy Orton. Bray Wyatt getting all emotional. Randy ends up torching the place, talking about how he's coming for the World Championship at WrestleMania, which is confusing since AJ Styles just won a match to go to WrestleMania to face him. So I don't know what they're doing with their booking of this situation, but obviously you're going to see Shane McMahon somehow decide that Randy Orton's going to get his match back, and that'll piss off AJ Styles, and then those two will have to have their match that none of us want to see. And of course, now we'll get back to Bray and Randy Orton. But the way they went about this was just weird. It's very strange. I still can't wrap my mind around it. I'm going to move off WWE programming because I have a lot of other stuff I want to cover with you guys, starting with New Japan Pro Wrestling. It was announced the New Japan Cup will be March 11th and 12th. The winner of the New Japan Cup gets a championship opportunity in any of the 3 heavyweight titles in the company. The IWGP Intercontinental Championship, that right now is held by Tetsuya Naito. The IWGP Heavyweight Championship held by Kazuchika Okada, or the Never Openweight Championship held by Hiroki Goto. So the group of people who are competing, Bad Luck Fale, Evil, Hiroshi Tanahashi, who's won this a ton of times. He's competed in 8 of them. He won it in 05, he won it in 08, but he's lost in the first round the last couple of years, so that's kind of disappointing. Hopefully he'll do better this year, but he's kind of had a down year. Juice Robinson, it's his first appearance. Katsuyori Shibata, Kenny Omega, Michael Elgin, Minoru Suzuki, Sonata, Tama Tonga, Tangaroa, Tomoaki Hanma, Tomohiro Ishii, Toru Yano, Yoshihashi, Yujiro Takahashi. These are all the premium talents. If you go back to Wrestle Kingdom or any other of their big shows, these are all the biggest and the best that New Japan has to offer. As far as the matchups, on March 11th, Bad Luck Fale will face off against Michael Elgin. Should be a killer match. Evil against Hiroshi Tanahashi. Don't know how to feel about that because Tanahashi has been on the downspin lately. Tama Tonga versus Toru Yano. Looking forward to that. Tangaroa versus Tomoaki Hanma. Should be an alright match. I think Roa really needs to develop a little more before he'll be on the level where that's going to be exciting. On March 12th, Juice Robinson against Yujiro Takahashi. Again, Takahashi, I expect to win that. Shibata goes against Minoru Suzuki. I'm dying to see this. Katsuyori Shibata versus Minoru Suzuki has the makings of being a all-time classic match. Kenny Omega against Tomohiro Ishii. Again, potentially a monumental matchup. And Sonata will close it out against Yoshihashi, which is also going to be a quality match. If you're not a huge fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, you really are missing out, because all the matches I just talked about are killer opportunities for some real classic matches. A few other tidbits. Eric Rowan has been cleared to return to wrestling. That's something I don't know how they're going to work that into the whole storyline. There's a possible spoiler for Kurt Angle. There's rumors floating around now that after WrestleMania, and with Mick Foley leaving shortly for his surgery, that Kurt Angle may become the new GM of Monday Night Raw. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. As far as TNA is concerned, the big news yesterday, the Hardys and Drew Galloway leaving. Now Anthem has decided they're going to phase out the TNA name. They're going to bring in other talents. One of them potentially could be Matt Morgan. The Blueprint may be returning to wrestling. He indicated he'll be returning within 4 weeks, which coincidentally is right around the time that they're going to be putting out their newest episodes on television. So maybe Matt Morgan is part of their solution to losing Drew Galloway. I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But either way, TNA has a whole lot of changes going on right now, so we're going to have to keep an eye on what TNA does, and if they want to maintain the fan base that they've built all this time, they really better put some money into some talent. They're restructuring contracts in a way that's going to be very different, and I don't know if they're going to be able to attract the same types of talent that they've had in the past. On the topic of TNA, there is also rumored that they may be getting rid of the TNA name to bring in the GFW, Global Force Wrestling name, as an umbrella company for it that Jeff Jarrett established a few years ago. I don't like this at all, but if that's what they want to do, whatever. The Global Force brand is nowhere near as popular as Impact Wrestling, and Impact Wrestling is not the most popular thing in the world, but it's clearly more popular than GFW, so we'll have to see how that plays out. The betting odds are out for Fastlane, the Universal Championship. Right now, Kevin Owens is the underdog to Goldberg. For the WWE Raw Women's Championship, the current favorite is Charlotte Flair. She's a minus 1750. For the tag titles, Gallows and Anderson are favored to retain. The Cruiserweight Championship, Neville is projected to defeat Jack Gallagher, which I would expect because I think he's going to go against Austin Aries at WrestleMania. Roman Reigns is the favorite over Braun Strowman, but The Undertaker, coincidentally, according to the odds makers, has the odds of minus 200 to show up at ringside, which I think would be perfect for him to come out to start setting the tone for his match at WrestleMania. Samoa Joe, heavy favorite over Sami Zayn. You kind of expect that. Sasha Banks is actually the favorite over Nia Jax. I did not expect that, but I'm actually happy to see that. Nia Jax, she just looks too invincible, and at some point you either need to just give her the title and let her run with it like a Brock Lesnar run a couple years ago, or she's got to be beatable. Rich Swann and Akira Tozawa are the favorites over Kendrick and Noam Dar. So the pre-pay-per-view betting odds are out, and they look interesting. Ring of Honor's 15th anniversary show is coming up March 10th. They've announced today that there are going to be multiple personalities there signing autographs. Adam Cole, the Young Bucks, Marty Scurll, the Kingdom, Leo Rush, Jay Lethal, the Briscoes, Jay White, Roppongi Vice, which is Beretta and Rocky Romero, Colt Cabana, Jay Lethal. You can get all those people at one spot. Singles wrestlers are $20 for a personal item, an 8x10 photo that's supplied by Ring of Honor. Get that signed in one pose with the wrestlers. Tag teams are $30, so give them my little plug for Ring of Honor. A couple little side notes on some of the independent wrestling. Netflix has now got a trailer out for the Glow series that's coming back to Netflix. So if you were a fan of the original Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, feel free to check out that trailer now. Our section for this day in pro wrestling history today: happy 64th birthday to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, one of my all-time favorites, a guy who should have had a run with the WWF World Heavyweight Championship at some point, and for some reason just never was given that opportunity. He had that short stint with the NWA Championship, that's great, but the guy, for the talent he had, he really should have had a Ric Flair resume of championships. I'm just saying, it's my opinion. 17 years ago today, Mae Young gave birth to a hand. I'm not even going to go any further with that. Mae Young gave birth to a hand. 15 years ago, Tough Enough Season 2 on MTV, with the winners being Linda Miles and Jackie Gata. Runner-up in that, the second place runner-up was Kenny King, who eventually had Ring of Honor and TNA situations going on. And other people who were on that show was Matt Morgan, Johnny Mundo, Shelly Martinez, Awesome Kong, TNA's Gunner, and Shad Gaspard all appeared on that season. 4 years ago today, speaking of Kenny King, he won the TNA X Division Championship from Rob Van Dam in what had to have been a complete shocker. That's all the time we have for this episode, guys. I'm really sorry I didn't have the opportunity to get you guys together with a new poll for the day, but unfortunately, I have a whole lot of commitments I got to take care of before I go to bed tonight, so I got to get this out there for you because I wanted to make sure we reviewed Raw and Smackdown. Don't forget about the Fro Life Planning Contest. For those who don't know what Fro Life Planning is, we help students and adult learners find their path to higher education or a new career. Every month, we give away a 30-minute one-on-one consultation to one lucky winner with no purchase necessary. Launch your iTunes in your computer, go to the Fro Wrestling Podcast iTunes page, click subscribe, and write us a review under the ratings and review section. Give us an honest review, then go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com/contest. Put your email address in there and you'll be entered for your opportunity to win one of those one-on-one sessions. That's all the time we have for this episode, but check back with us in episode 32. We'll review all the happenings in the world of wrestling. Special thanks, as always, go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the music and sound effects today. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Go to thegamecrafter.com/sketchy. Let me say that again. Go to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. And go to alleyrepair.com if you have any needs for servicing of your classic skee-ball, pinball, or arcade games. Thank you again, as always, for coming and listening to today's podcast. We encourage you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you. Remember, Fro Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for, as always, taking a few moments with us, and we look forward to discussing more current events and rumors on our next episode, and I promise I will get you guys some more polls and more viewer interaction in our next episode. Until then, take care, everybody. Have a great night.